This is the new Nomos Club Campus Neomatic in Ember. This is it in Tobacco. This is my personal Nomos Club Campus. And this is my new kitten, who is so adorable and I love her so much, but that's not relevant at this very moment. Stop beating up my camera. I'm so sorry. You have to go. I'm so sorry. I love you so much. Let's talk about Nomos, the club sport, and why I think Nomos is absolutely killing it. If you're new here, hi, my name is Brittany, and this channel is dedicated to the beauty and awesomeness of timepieces. I feel like we should do a disclaimer just before we get started here. These have been sent to me by the fabulous team over at Nomos. This video isn't sponsored by them. This isn't a paid review. I have complete freedom to review and say my own honest thoughts, opinions, etc. But it should be known, I have a very large soft spot for Nomos as a brand. My first mechanical watch I ever owned was a Nomos, and I just have so much love and respect for them as a brand. I think they're pursuing a standard of excellence in timepieces that you don't see all the time at a price point that is unrivaled. It feels like they're one of the few brands not taking the piss. So let's talk about these, the specifications, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's get into it. Let's start with the specifications. These new club sports have a case size of 39.3 millimeters, a thickness of 8.6 mil, and a lug-to-lug of 49.6 millimeters. So that is a beefy lug-to-lug measurement. And I know some of you watch Gremlins are going to want to talk about the Nomos lugs, and we will. Not just yet, a little bit later in the video. We're still in the specifications for right now. One big thing with these new club sports is the water resistance. So I have the Nomos Club Campus Deep Pink, which has 100 meters of water resistance, which is still more than I'll ever need. But the new club sports, the ones with the bracelets, have 200 meters of water resistance, the same as the Black Bay 58, but in a far more elegant package. Powering these watches is the automatic manufacture caliber DUW 3001 with 27 joules and 43 hours of power reserve. This is a very, very thin automatic movement with a height of only 3.2 millimeters. It is beautifully decorated with blued screws, perlage on the base plate, and glashütte striping on the rotor and 3/4 plate. This is the real standout department for Nomos. All of their movements are made in-house in their production facility in Glashütte, which I had the absolute pleasure of visiting in September. I don't want to sound like a total dork here, but this level of watchmaking from an independent brand just isn't usually available at this price point. I'm not saying they're cheap. I know this is still a lot of money for so many people, but oh my gosh, what you're getting for the money. Now this is always an area of contention when it comes to Nomos. The design language isn't for everyone. I'd describe their design sensibilities as very German, very minimal, Bauhaus, but not afraid to experiment with colors. These are a part of the club collection, which I would describe as the line where Nomos really lets their hair down a little bit. These are the meeting place of sporty and dressy, but definitely a little more on the dressy side. A go anywhere, do anything watch, but with Nomos design sensibilities. These have a completely polished case and lugs that meet an oyster style bracelet with brushed outer links and polished center links. The clasp is polished, which is something that I personally dislike. I just think it could be a scratch magnet, as it is an area that gets a lot of action if you do a lot of high impact activities like myself, such as sitting at my desk, typing, and making subpar meals. And there is micro adjustment on the clasp with a push adjustment system, so if you push the little spring bars, you can toollessly make adjustment. It is a bit fiddly, it helps if you have nails, but technically you can toollessly make micro adjustments. These come in 3 different colorways, so Tobacco, which is this deep rich brown, Ember, which is more of a peachy brown, and Smoke, which is a rich gray. Looking at the dials, one of the first things I noticed is we don't have a California dial like we do on my club campus, with the bottom numbers being Roman numerals and the top are Arabic. The club sport is a combination of Arabic and baton markers, all loomed. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Nomos are masters of color. Every single variation color is just, mwah, it's perfect. It's beautifully done. They're so rich, but still kind of subtle and muted. Yes. Now, I said we'd be circling back to this, and the time has come. We need to talk about Nomos lugs. Anytime I make a video about a Nomos, I will inevitably get flooded with comments about the lugs. And yes, Nomos and their team of highly trained watchmakers and designers are aware that the watches have long lugs. This isn't news to them. It's a design feature you just have to kind of accept with their watches, bar the Luxe and the Tetra. Other than those, your watch probably will have long lugs. It's just something you have to keep in mind when buying from Nomos. And I think in watch reviews, this is why it's so important to include the lug-to-lug measurement. It's a far better number to go off of than case diameter on how a watch will wear. Although these have a case diameter of 39 millimeters, the lug-to-lug of 49.6 millimeters is notable and makes it a much larger wearing experience than how the numbers might initially sound. So here it is on my 5.5-inch wrist versus my husband's 7-inch wrist. This size is too large for me. There is a bit of overhang, but it looks completely in place on my husband's wrist. What I do like about the addition of the 39mm case size is it does close the gap that existed there before. So when the Club Sport was first released last year, it was available in 37mm and 42mm, which kind of left a massive gap for the average or larger wrist size. For a 6.5-inch wrist or smaller, I'd recommend the 37mm, 6.5-inch wrist to 7.5-inch wrist, the 39mm, and above that, the 42mm would be my recommendation. And of course, it all depends on how you like your watches to wear. Maybe you like them to wear a bit smaller, ignore my advice, or maybe you like them a bit larger. Ignore me. That would just be my general guidelines. I'll keep this section short and sweet because I think most of this review has already been all the things I love about these. I think this is a really strong go anywhere, do anything offering from the brand. I love the rich new colors they've made. It's like autumn on the wrist. These really speak to my sensibilities. I love watches that are a bit more elevated, a little bit dressier. And of course, Nomos movements are something they take great pride in, and they're fantastic. I think Nomos is really flexing here. They're saying, yeah, we can do dive specifications, we can do loom, simple, minimal, we can do bracelets, and we can do it all well. Okay, so I've got 3 big things that I kind of like less about these. So number 1, the polished clasp isn't my favorite. I always prefer a brushed clasp. I've ruined enough shiny surfaces to know that I just need these brushed. Number 2, the Nomos lugs sadly caused me to be sized out of these. The 37mm Club Sport works for me, but I want these delicious autumn colors. And 3, back to the clasp. I just find the micro adjustment a little bit fiddly. There's nothing massively wrong with it. It's a step up from, say, the Tudor Black Bay 58 micro adjustment system and needing a tool, but it isn't quite as easy as I prefer, like say compared to the T-Fit clasp. Much easier, but still, this does have a fine micro adjustment system. This is just me nitpicking. Now I'm hiding this section at the end because I know most people have clicked on this video to learn about the watch itself and not hear about my personal experience. But I really want to share a bit more about why I love Nomos so much. And a revelation I had in Germany. So we went over to Nomos HQ and the manufacturing facilities back in September and spent about a week in Dresden and Glashütte, soaking up all things watches and just being in Glashütte, this tiny little town completely devoted to watchmaking, and seeing Nomos's pride in their production, the love and care and craftsmanship that goes into their watches. It just revitalized my love of horology. During the summer and just after the summer, I was beginning to feel a bit dry about this YouTube channel and just watches in general. The videos I'd posted that had done really well were just me complaining about watch price hikes or slagging off Rolex or Rolex watches that are now under retail. And even though my channel was performing better than it ever had, I was kind of losing the juice. I was losing the heart of what this channel was all about in the first place, why I began this in the first place. I was growing bitter, jaded, and just kind of sick of the smoke and mirrors of the Swiss watch industry. I don't know, and I think it was just getting out of my studio, getting off YouTube for a week, and being immersed in German watchmaking, the passion, the pride that they put in their timepieces, and Germany's specific and important history within the greater, wider thing of watchmaking. It got me. I fell back in love with horology. And it's not just the pride they take in their watchmaking, it's that Nomos stands for something greater than watches and value retention and all this gross stuff that performs well in the YouTube algorithm. Their employees are just happy, and it rubs off on you, and it makes you love the brand with them. Something that absolutely no one has reported on in the watch space, and I didn't know. But there were reporters from Berlin in Glashütte to interview Nomos and their hard stance against the far-right extremism that's on the rise in Germany. And Nomos remains fiercely independent, even with their neighbors and competition being subsidiaries of Richemont and Swatch. They're creating a legacy, which is something I don't think we see a lot of watch brands doing these days. Anyways, okay, I gotta end my Nomos sermon. What do you guys think to these? I want to hear everything in those comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe. If you're not subscribed, come on now, get subscribed. And let's thank the gorgeous, fabulous patrons. Oh, I also have to say, James will get mad at me if I don't. He's doing some push-ups all over the month of November for MOVEMBER, raising money for prostate cancer, which is not fun stuff. Cancer is something that has really specifically affected us. If you know me well, you'll know. Yeah. If you want to support him, head on over to his Instagram page. You can sponsor him and a few other guys who are doing that. I'll leave a link in those comments. Okay, let's thank the Pope tier patrons. Thank you, Pope tier patrons. Ooh, going back to the classic song. Thank you, you're all amazing. This is some of my worst singing yet. I don't know how I'll find music to match what I'm singing, but thank you, Pope tier patrons. Thank you, all tier patrons. You're the best.